Hello, Americans. Since founding, our country's name was used remotely, and as they were used remotely, all modern countries' names, as they had been used remotely semi ancient names before our founders were even born. Slavery was entrenched North America and South America. That is not clear because I've stayed roles with what they call education and what they call natures of debate while simultaneously using words like politics, the way the breaching method employed that, having interpreted what our founders communicated to us, which was greater than, and which was more finite than, and which is active relativity to ourselves as the Constitution unabridged, where and how they had to start abridged and they had to hide their actual roles with what everything they said, which communicated to get the Constitution on a bridge and to explain how and why they had to leave it to start a bridge. They had to leave employments. The difference of them legally foreign influenced, their employees, the overt criminal enterprises, and the private ones. They were juxtaposed. That difference was used. Black pupil. Tactical ulterior from how nature uses difference. And we have the same color eyes and different color eyes simultaneously, slash hyper simultaneously to discern this. So if you had a halfway decent school, you know that education is easy and is hard. Tactical ulterior, where we can observe tactical ulterior from where and how people communicate with subjects. No, see, these are political subjects. They ask questions, and everyone left out how employment's A through Z, like lawyers. I forgot her name. There's a lawyer who keeps coming on television. She's got a Christmas suit on, and she's describing truths, but they are ones used for lies. For example, where she's saying don't take selfies of yourself, for example, at crime scenes. And I don't know what that means, or don't take, no, and she's saying to call herself. But a Trantolo and Trantolo is involved with the same networks. Lawyers of Weathersfield Police and of the FBI are involved with the same networks planting evidences themselves and the difference of them and the people that are their sources. Investigations and investigators have been used remotely since founding Black pupils. These are convictions that we can make and use the hyper-evidential to discern this. See, we haven't been shown to use the hyper-evidential, even though there's means to discern it. Black pupils. How are you? Good morning. Uh, do you believe in the two-party system? Um, we cannot leave out the breaching method has maintained effectively criminally foreign influence usage, also self value because of a certain type of victim slash hyper victim. Also the exceptions to the two parties, where and how there are applications by types of styles of liars and using truths and using complete lies juxtaposed to hide what came first too, which is one of the things that is recorded commonly against everyone and the parties sickly distinctly. But they have left out American history's proper telling because the first 13 colonies were forced, they were counter extorted by George Washington. I mean, by James Madison's plan. And George Washington agreed to help. And we were supposed to treat honestly the extortion of George Washington, which would have brought up how he was tortured, in fact, nature enslaved. And there was identity theft, fraud, slanders forced against him. Otherwise, he would have been discerned by the breaching method through our own. The breaching method measures and maintains countries A through Z, speaking about politics, to defend themselves, relying syntactically on name groupings, tactical ulterior from how nature has us, individuals, of a species body of volume. Different locations, areas, ages, sexes, these differences have to do with this volume science. See, teachers are a certain type of victim slash hyper victim from the rest of the, like the lawyers who change what people say. Then they self-value roles with the intelligence community, changing what's recorded online, digital. The same people that want to bring digital currency. These are people who had conversations where they used words like crime, corrections. The state of Connecticut corrections offices has roles interstates, on off the state capitol with many people. Military is breached since founding. The suburbs were designed, tactically denatured. Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center had roles with the attack. Self-value, where everyone speaks to others, right where they don't want it. And the difference of that is also being and have been used, Black pupils. When they bring up the January 6th attack, it comes with the relativity. It comes with the relativity of, first of all, Washington, D.C. You don't we're not supposed to separate. Nature shows us. Constitution on a bridge. You don't separate Washington, D.C. from that breaching method, which measured and maintained everything they would communicate to us. It was hyper sophistication here first. It knew that, in other words, obviously the jails, the difference between them criminally foreign influence needed to hide that at other locations, or the branch of the government. There was slavery entrenched north and south against everyone. And see, when someone brings up the proofs of that, for people only pretend they can only perceive. In other words, there's black and white collusion with the law. Even their sexual differences in their groups and those of their family members. They have Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC recorded to an extent by the agencies used remotely with them, with bringing up, with fabricating audio and video or wire crime methods on campuses with the resource officers. Their roles with the intelligence community, keeping people before they took oaths, even kids, there are proofs that kids took oaths before they took their oaths, and the process of it was criminally foreign influence to measure and maintain that self-value. This breaching method employed how it caused negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, blamed on other things, others, or selves, and knowing that nature would increasingly demonstrate that. And it showed them how they need to hide them from those demonstrations, from things already. All sides in criminal and civil cases, and the interbranch names, and their lawyers, and their family members, and their sources, and the news at the same time had collusions and have collusions with predicate acts with facts. Part of the method of natures of crime with people with facts. And also increasingly leaving out the value of what came first as people who sequence shift while sticking fake evidences into databases into branch, where and how collusions with investigators haven't been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought and pretending others since founding, even though that's recorded. There's a quality of fact treatment nature at courts of all ages and of all nature, statutes and natures that is sickly distinctly manifest to keep how sickly non-distinctly from being discerned. When people speak about population and the problems, they leave out how the ground, its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that is tactically denatured. The suburbs were designed not to be able to produce their own food and be a landscape theater, while value nature systems and jobs as value only by a breaching method, individually grouped and together, where it kept it needs difference. And the nature of debate, what people call criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, with shared premises treatments, like regarding the value of voting, regarding the value of how to interpret, how to follow mandated law. We would not have left out how what is recorded, the difference between corruption on and off the state corrections offices and on and off the state judicial branch offices. Houses next to Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, houses next to Central Connecticut State University in Wethersfield, in New Britain. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles of wire crimes of people from Wethersfield on and off campuses, predicate acts against little kids. The families that are at Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living and other medical campuses tied to these names. These are police forms who have the right to lie. They've been leaving out exception. These are prosecutors and judges and their family members. Forgiveness / hyper forgiveness. But if we start speaking about it, they'll show how they're predators / hyper predators. For example, because they can't get on paper. They have to lie. So, in other words, it was employed. In other words, they have people with Washington, D.C., involved with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with home break-ins and other natures of organized crime with kids, with people associated with conversations with 2 speech class teachers I had in high school. These are people on a mass scale that pretend they don't understand people. They are recorded the intelligence community incapable of being honest about what I said clear and what I say unclear. And that's part of the reason stuff was left typed like that in my descriptions of some of the videos. That's hyper evidential. The courts are recorded incapable of following mandated law, and they have rules and rules of evidence as crimes, and they have evidence as crimes. When I was a kid, a Ray Clow and a Joe DeMoro recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they were involved with organized crime bodies, including with judges and prosecutors in foreign countries, intelligence, medical rather, per the DeMoro side of it. DeMoro and Clow said that also a Kerr family is involved with them with sequence shifts and federal evidence as crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders with people at the corner of Town Line Drive and South Steen Highway, and involved with that mobile gas station and another mobile gas station. These are the extended family members of state police families, of judges, of retired Wethersfield police involved with wire crimes with the same house, falsified police reported, house/S. So please have those lawyers. There's a Trantolo and Trantolo. I had a simple conversation with a word. They changed what I said, conspiracy theory. There were only about 350 streets in Hartford. They steal unbelievable thousands and thousands of dollars from single individuals every day with people that are nothing to do with healthcare. They're under the guise of healthcare, under the guise of security. These are military families on off in the spots next to Hartford Hospital. People are neighbors and people from other areas tied to people named Gold and people like former mayors. They've been planting evidences so long they have to hide lie progressions, but it's been collusion with federal agencies. There was remote uses of syntax regarding the value of states' rights, used remotely, criminally foreign influence, defending that. It's reliant upon qualities of fact-keeping nature that are dependent upon tactically delusions raw, premises treatments by Americans A through Z because of how they've been at the campuses left this way, Black pupils. This is about a predicate acts with facts delivery system method /S and or the value of a criminal insidiousness delivery system method. So they put a lot of impositions upon the other judges, because now people need to have mandated law followed, where the formal courts force a quality of fact human nature as collusion /s with all locations /s. And there's increasingly self-valuing where and how there are juxtaposed consciously methods, whole predicate act methods that are being and haven't been used between the campuses. Also per where and how the breaching method used remotely. For example, they pretend with Connecticut's changing their syntax regarding the criminality of marijuana. Note, while they have all kinds of synthetic drugs for recreation too that hurt people, they want to take plants and they're taking the quality of it. They're making all excuses. Oh, we want people to be, in other words, they're pretending to be against smoking. If they want to be against smoking, they wouldn't have these disgusting strains of marijuana and leave the good strains used for people that they have criminally foreign influence. Tactically delusions raw. Identity theft, fraud, slanders, grew up lying about themselves and others, attaching them to fake locations. Indoor has roles with it too, increasingly. See, people increasingly, sickly, distinctly, boys and girls are victims because that difference in the difference of women is used remotely. So we have the black pupils and we have how people are stacked in New York City. Simultaneously, where, how, why the value is increasingly valuable to discern how the suburbs were designed tactically denatured to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature, while they only mean simultaneously to cause positive value nature acts and progressions and natures more and more had to come through the filter of roles with the breaching method. Therefore, roles increasingly screening it with apparent motivations relative to nature's demonstrations of the breaching method, which come in the form of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. For example, the real causes of the shootings in New York City are inseparable from what tactically denatured the suburbs. It only allowed the cities, a country, from in America and in Russia and in Ukraine. In America and in Russia, we have nuclear weapons and means to traverse the earth. But the suburbs were designed for the torture and extortion and slavery, fact, human nature, slavery of our founders. Our sides have self-value roles, keeping that obfuscated by self, which is simultaneously self-value roles with where and how this breaching method effectively gets and keeps the identities hurting each other, where it's not even their identity. You guys are just using our names and saying we as victims / hyper victims, shock and awe, self-valuing that being and having been. The best campuses of America and the worst ones, and the difference of that is also employed by the breaching method, self-value uses of it and roles. So Americans, we believe and understand things on a mass scale, that we are offensively, people jump into our conversations and they get away with it because of their roles. With the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, also has roles with people at this corner. There's a Tony DeMoro who also, after the World Trade Center attack, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also with my neighbors, people associated with those businesses there, had conversations involved with child offenders, and further with the principal child abusers campus. There are people with Kerr, with the name Kerr, reportedly. I think I read that he's involved with the business there. But I know that an Abate, someone with the name Abate, I never had a conversation with in my life. He's one of the ones on Facebook involved with child offenders associated with police chiefs and their roles along Route 3 with a whole bunch of different countries. People involved with the name Zano, increasingly at Whiting Forensics, used remotely criminally foreign influence with state police families Increasingly, people tied to Ray Reynolds have been stacking predicate acts with facts, drugs and medicines, crimes with little kids, attaching them to fake conversations with doctors. These are also not doctors associated with the counters where they force little kids to drugs. Now, I was never forced to drugs as a kid. That the WFSB pretended I had ties to doctors as with doctors who were involved with the principal child defender at the time. Hartford Hospital has a whole bunch of people involved with predicate acts at other locations and with the campuses and with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. They use wire crime acts and methods and where they make a whole bunch of confessions and they prevent people from even speaking. Then they pretend they didn't understand them. You understand I could speak clear and I could discern. I could help you discern humanity, the value of a predicate better than you've ever had it discerned. And then you're going to ask, well, what's a predicate act? See, that's why you have that obfuscated from you. But see, your identities of law were shown needs. In other words, where they pretended to be for Black people while labeling them, while as the only people speaking for the law, still they have self-value, having had American history taught wrong. You guys left out the breaching method with black, white, color, difference. It's employments of it. It's employments of these questions that can't defend themselves and afford equality of fact, human nature, where it is a countries individually grouped and together that are forcing it too, because it was forced on them. It's even down to our interactions with ourselves at countries A through Z. They never had possession of their names. The interbranch family members, time where people are going to be that they don't even know. That's how they make confessions. Where communications, also how nature would have showed us things that are left out, like how communications is simultaneously greater than and more finite than, an active relativity to what is said. But it also comes with demonstrations of it's either what with questions. Sometimes it's the value of what came first that's more important. The questions asked by courts are as collusions. They're asked as communicated confessions, demonstrated recorded collusions. For example, New Britain Superior Court asked questions with names that were involved with planting evidences on the court next to the World Trade Center right before the attack. They have roles with predicate acts since with WFSB. Mark Violet and Mike Violet, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. A whole bunch of people other like Eric Oliveri too. And other people that know my name, I don't know their name. Two cooking classes I was in. Have people involved with Elm Streets and Weathersfield and Rocky Hill. Like that. In other words, the Eric Oliveri. And before the Mazzucato Bakery was at the corner of Elm Street and Route 3, years before, that corner was involved with the people involved with the wire crimes, with the police chief Centron, and one years ago with the same house /S, involved with predicate acts with them. And everyone attached to that, people that attached me to fake conversations with themselves and their doctors. And one of the doctors, they prevented me from having a conversation with it and then switched it, made it look like I had a conversation with another guy about that. A whole bunch of people tied to the houses too, like a Chuck Casper. I never had a class with him in my life. His family is like, he reportedly had a father that was a basketball coach. And he has people involved with the intelligence community next to the state capitol, with foreign and domestic military involved with the World Trade Center attack. And increasingly, people on off my kindergarten class were recorded and confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also with houses now.